would just be crazy.
Well, does anyone know what handy.com is?
Yes.
Well, how would you describe it?
Cool. Maybe actually show of hands. I'm curious. Who knows what handy.com is? Cool. So most people that just raise their hand are people that I've talked to in the last half an hour. So we're essentially an on-demand home services marketplace. So you can think of very similar experience to booking a taxi through Uber or booking a room through Airbnb. We allow you to book a vetted residential cleaner, plumber, handyman, electrician. We're about 2 years old. Company was started in Boston area. 2 Harvard Business School guys who dropped out. Very cliche. And fast forward 2 years, I'll give you more of an update on where we're at in one sec.
All right. What do you want to do here? It doesn't.
Cool. Yeah, if you just click present. Awesome.
Doesn't want to work. So I'd like you to bring your own machine. Okay, just go with this, man.
Yeah, that works.
So you got it. Go for it.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to spend 5 minutes, not a minute longer, talking about what I call marketplace liquidity. And specifically, doing things that don't scale to try to kickstart your marketplace. Really quickly, we'll kind of work to define what a marketplace actually is. Talk about what our marketplace actually is, and then talk about a specific problem that we've had, the solution, and kind of how we've moved on from there. I took pieces of this from a deck I used very recently. The odd picture there of me with a pumpkin on the top of my head was just because I happened to be presenting on Halloween. So what exactly is a marketplace, just as a baseline before we get going? So the way I like to define a marketplace is it's essentially a platform that connects buyers and sellers, as simple as that. Obviously a really broad range of what marketplaces actually are. So if you think of kind of like a 2x2 matrix where if on one axis you have control of suppliers and another you have control of price, there's kind of lots of different marketplaces that sit on different places in that 2x2. So Craigslist, for example, true democracy marketplace. Anybody can post anything they want. It's actually kind of crazy. If you search, you can find some pretty interesting things. And then us on the other end, Handy, for example, or Uber, it's controlled pricing, controlled supply base, and then maybe somebody like Airbnb would sit in the middle. So really quickly, a little bit about us. I kind of talked through it. These are some of the services we offer. Fast forward 2 years from when I told you where we started. We're now in 30 plus cities across North America. We've raised quite a bit of money. And we actually just launched in Toronto about 6 weeks ago. And at the end, there'll be an offer if anybody ever wants to try us. So back to a specific challenge that we had. So I think a lot of marketplaces go through this at some point, but there's always a point in a marketplace's life cycle where you either have a supply shortage or a demand shortage. And especially when you're just getting going, you always have to think through, what's the harder piece of the puzzle to solve, and how are you going to actually pump, whether it's demand or supply, into the system. So there's this constant balancing act. So there's a lot of literature on this. I definitely am not the one who wrote the book, but you can often do things that are totally not scalable in order to pump what I call liquidity into the marketplace, so to help satisfy buyers and sellers. This is, again, from a deck I used in the past. There's a bunch of different things you can do to actually do things that don't scale. I kind of put them into 4 different buckets, but I'll focus on finding users. So this is a specific problem that we had a couple of years ago. We were having a really easy time finding suppliers. So in our case, the cleaners, the handyman, to actually work on our platform. What was really challenging at the start is how we'd find customers to actually satisfy these cleaners and convince them that we were a good platform to work on where they could actually make money. So what did we actually do to solve this? We turned to daily deals. So again, the problem was how do we pump demand into our system really quickly to satisfy the supply base? If you kind of look back to this graph that I had up there, this is like classic like supply demand curve that you see in an economics class. The two things you can maybe do are either decrease price or increase quantity. So how do we actually do that? Daily deals provided a really amazing solution for us. Why were they a good solution? They had this massive audience base, really easy for us to get liquidity really quickly. And it also helped us actually launch new cities really quickly. So we could turn to this platform where we could put up an offer, get hundreds of bookings into our system really quickly. And even if a small percentage of these customers repeated, it provided a vehicle for us to make our supply base happy. So really quickly, we're like creating this snowball. So that was our solution. The reason I put these other companies up there is because other companies also have done really cool things that don't scale. A couple of really quick examples. Quora, a marketplace for questions and answers. At the start, they actually would just seed the answers. So the people who worked in the company would just go and respond to questions that people were asking. Airbnb, this is like the classics example, but they would actually go door to door and try to find customers at the start. So the takeaway is really it's okay to do things that don't scale at points, specifically in a marketplace to kick it going. I think my 5 minutes is probably up. If anybody has any questions, you know where to find me here.
Well, actually, we have 3 minutes of questions. So does anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
Well, how do you guys do the background checks?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the question was, how do we do the background checks? And now that I'm talking to the microphone, I hope everybody's been able to hear me for the last 5 minutes. So the way we onboard our supply base is very similar to how you apply for a normal job. You fill out an application, you then actually go through an interview process, and part of that process is a background check, which we pay for and process. Yeah. Yeah.
So do you find that you're actually over the hump now where you don't have to see the user adoption?
Yeah.
So what was the change that made that possible?
Yeah, it's a good question. So in our marketplace, it can literally change weekly, whether we have a demand shortage or a supply shortage. So for a long time, we've definitely been at a place where we're actually supply constrained. So it's how can we onboard more service professionals, which is definitely a good problem to have. But yeah, the axis is kind of turned. Yep.
How do you differentiate yourself from your competitors? For example, I think HomeJoy does something similar to you guys, right? So how do you compete with them?
Yeah, I've never heard of that company, but no, I'm kidding. So yeah, I mean, other than just simply being cooler, the way we differentiate really is the way we differentiated early on, where we actually offered more services. So HomeJoy was really deeply focused in cleaning. We actually offered a stronger value prop to the customer, we think, by offering other services. The other ways that we differentiate ourselves are really by trying to move faster. So actually like getting better at pumping liquidity into our system and satisfying buyers and sellers. And we also have people on the ground in all these cities to help us do that. Yeah.
Two more. Last one? Okay.
Yeah.
The two guys who have founded, were they the tech people? And also, if they were tech people, did they go through an accelerator to start the company and get the funding going? Or?
Yeah, good question. So neither of them were technical. They both they met at Harvard Business School, and they partnered with somebody who was technical that actually built the product.
And went into accelerator to get the funding?
Yeah, they went through Harvard Labs, which is an accelerator just open to people in the Harvard ecosystem. Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, guys.